Let's jump into this first story. Maybe we'll talk a little about the hurricane in a bit. From timcast.com, 2 explosions registered near Nord Stream pipelines, causing gas to leak in Baltic Sea. A senior Ukrainian official accused Russia of the explosions, calling them an act of terrorism. Now, you may have noticed, we titled this show, U.S. Accused. And that's because online, what you're seeing pop up all over Twitter and on social media is a video of Joe Biden saying that the U.S. was going to take this action. I think it's obvious that Russia is being accused of doing this, but my issue right there is we could structure the story and frame it a certain way. We can say U.S. accused, which we chose to do. We could say Russia accused, which I feel kind of makes no sense. Or we could say both U.S. and Russia separately accused of engaging in sabotage. The issue I take with this is that if Russia were to have been the one that detonated some device blowing up the pipeline, it's a false flag attack. And I don't think that's the simple solution. I think it's more likely that we have this story right here. Check this out. This is from February 8th. If Russia invades Ukraine, there will be no Nord Stream 2, Biden says. I mean, he says it. And then he smirks when he's asked by a reporter, well, how would you do anything about it? You have no control. And he says, I promise you, there will be no Nord Stream pipeline. Then we learn about an operation. Baltops 22, U.S. Navy's 6th Fleet, was doing exercises with mine detection and mock explosives near Bornholm, Denmark, which is where the explosions happened. Now, no matter how you cut it, we got a conspiracy. Who did it? Why did they do it? I don't think it actually matters. The U.S., some people think they did it because Biden said he's basically said there would be no pipeline. But Russia, they could stage a false flag to try and boost morale because they're conscripting people and they need people willing and happy to fight. So which is it? I
think you made a good point that it's one of the more valuable assets. To destroy that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Like Pearl Harbor, whether or not you think it was a false flag, some people think it was, in the case that they didn't know that they were going to get attacked in Pearl Harbor, but they let it happen anyway. They didn't know exactly where or when. But they had 5 aircraft carriers out of port, or a bunch of 4 of their 5 aircraft carriers. Something. If the aircraft carriers had been at Pearl Harbor and they had been sunk, Japan would have invaded San Francisco next. So the U.S. was ready for Pearl Harbor, whether or not it seemed like it.
So Hawaii is decently far away, but I don't know about invading San Francisco.
Well, if we didn't have the aircraft carriers to defend, the Japanese would have controlled the Pacific after that battle.
Yeah. So also, with any event, you got to ask yourself who really benefits here. But even beyond going the speculation here, I think a lot of the other comments made by other prominent politicians absolutely matter here. The Danish prime minister said that it's, quote, hard to imagine that this is accidental. The Polish prime minister said that this was an act of sabotage. And now the former Ministry of Defense for Poland sent out a message on Twitter saying, thank you, USA, with a picture of course, the pipeline that, of course, busted off of Denmark. So there's a lot of crazy stuff happening. Ukraine is blaming Russia. Russia is blaming the West. Who's responsible here? We do not know, but this is going to guarantee a dark winter in Europe. Europe is already in a major energy crisis. This guarantees very severe problems ahead of us that are going to be very impactful for the average people, for the poorest people in Europe that are going to be devastated by this.
Who is this guy? It's Radek Sikorsky, sorry. And I believe he's a member of European Parliament, chairman, EU-USA delegation. I'm not sure exactly. I heard he's from Poland. Do you know who he is?
I think he's a former Minister of Defense. Is that?
Yeah. I don't know. This guy right here, Radek Sikorsky, says, thank you, USA. He's verified on Twitter as a member of European Parliament.
Yeah, the USA is probably the one that did it. Or whoever's involved. There's no way. I seriously doubt Russia. You might stage a false flag to get people to go to war, but when you're already in war, it's pretty. I mean, it's not off the impossible that you would stage a false flag to get people to go do something within the war, but
also specifically,
blow up your own freaking
There was
pipeline.
forewarning that this was going to happen. According to Reuters, the CIA was warning Berlin about the possibility on attacks on these pipelines the summer of this year. So the CIA knew this was happening. There was war games, as Tim was talking about. I think, again, you got to ask yourself, who does this benefit? This stops the possibility of another bargaining chips. This stops the possibility of negotiations. This stops the possibility of Europe having energy. This stops the possibility of what a lot of people are calling the Great Reset, that, of course, is only going to be pushed forward by this latest action.